It's just too much. It's all too much. You're overbooked, your calendar is a mess, your inbox is piling up, and it just feels like everybody wants something from you. I've been here. I've been here often. And fortunately, I've found a lot of ways out of this place, back to having some time for me, having some space to breathe and to live my life. I've also been coaching people in the Getting Things Done GTD methodology for nearly a decade, people across all kinds of industries and job titles. And what I've found is there are really three key places that you want to focus when you are feeling overwhelmed and you want some relief. One is your calendar. Another is your projects. And the third is the ongoing areas of focus in your life. Now, fair warning in advance, none of this is just a silver bullet that's going to absolutely, do it for you. But for those willing to get out of the pain of being overcommitted, those willing to put in the work, this is the fastest and frankly the most effective way I've found to get back some of your life and to feel in charge again. So in this video, I'm going to talk about what you should do in these three kind of areas, some strategies for looking at these, and for basically helping you to reclaim some headspace, some time, and that sense that you're in charge again. So the strategies for getting out from under overwhelm are pretty similar to the strategies that you use for capacity planning when you're evaluating something new that's a commitment that's coming your way. This is just about sort of refactoring a lot of your existing commitments so that you feel comfortable. And at the end of the day, it's about getting real about what's reasonable for you to take on based on what you know about the circumstances. So it's an art, not a science. It's an ongoing practice, but there are some real keys to this. And the first one is that basically there are only two ways to feel good about what you've committed to in your world. One is to complete that commitment and recognize it as done. And the other is to renegotiate that commitment. The third option, of course, is to fail to meet the deadline, to miss it, to not do it, to procrastinate indefinitely. And of course, that just takes its toll on your self-esteem, on your sense of someone and your image of yourself as someone that can get things done and be reliable. So your two options are complete it or renegotiate it. You could just kind of ride out your current commitments and just decide to complete the things that are already in front of you as much as possible, and not take on very much that's new. Right. And that's one way to kind of get out of it. Just ride the thing out. Of course, you do need to be appropriate about your capacity planning. And as I said, the strategy is pretty similar for deciding if you can take on new stuff or not. And then the second option for those of you that really are under stress and need help now is that you need to renegotiate some stuff. You need to actively renegotiate what's going on now, rather than simply trying to write it out and complete everything. Because you don't want to start missing things, right? You don't want to start missing stuff and sort of defaulting on things you said that you would do. It really takes its toll on you. And you don't want to burn out here either. So let's look at the three places that can help you, where just focusing some attention and getting real about these areas and the ways that these areas are reflecting what's true in your world can help. So the calendar is the first place to look because it represents your commitments coming at you in time. Now, the first thing is that in the Getting Things Done methodology, we recommend that you not try and use your calendar like a to-do list, basically, putting a bunch of want-tos instead of have-tos in there. We go into some more detail about what your alternatives are, but suffice it to say, in order to really take a good look at your calendar, you need to have we call the hard landscape in there, right? The stuff that truly is time and day specific rather than a bunch of kind of squishy want-to stuff. And when that's the case, you want to be looking at the white space and you want to be looking at the spaces that are filled in. Three things that I look for in particular when I'm coaching. Do you have lunch breaks in there? Are you actually taking time to eat? Do you have switching time between meetings? Are your meetings literally totally back to back, which by the way, guarantees you're going to be late just pretty much every time, right? Do you have some kind of time to switch in there? And do you have time in your calendar to do non-meeting work? People commit to stuff all the time in meetings, right? They say they'll do stuff, but do you have time to actually do the stuff you've committed to in those meetings? Furthermore, do you have time to switch focus? Because it takes a tremendous amount of energy actually to switch focus when you're going from one meeting to another with a completely different topic. And, if they're back to back and they're even vaguely different from each other, you're basically sub-optimizing, your participation in both meetings. So there's a few things you can do if the calendar is just looking like there's too much on there. You can push it out and you can make it less. So one option is for all that stuff that you're trying to move forward, can you push it out a little more? Can you meet bi-weekly instead of weekly for these status updates on the project? Or can you make it less? Can you meet for half an hour instead of an hour? People sometimes like to use ragged time, like 25 minutes or 55 minutes, so that you're guaranteed that you at least got a little bit of switching time in those meetings, rather than, meetings fill the available space. You give it half an hour, you give it an hour, people are going to talk right up to that point in time. So that's one option. Another is that you may need to block out time. So in these shared calendar situations where people are jumping into your calendar sort of willy-nilly anywhere they see a white space, you may need to block some of that yourself. Block out time with yourself to do non-meeting work. Finally, if you're not in control of your calendar as much as you'd like to be, and there's, sort of bigger things going on in terms of the culture and the company being sort of meeting based, you may need to have the conversation. I hate to say it, but you may need to talk to your directs, your colleagues, your boss, your partner, your team, whoever, about the sheer, amount of time you're expected to be locked up in meetings versus time that you're available to actually do work and do the stuff, ad hoc that shows up, that is often just as important, if not more, than the more kind of rigid meeting-based stuff. So calendar is the first place to look. It's the first place to get real about you being one person, only being able to, go to one meeting at a time, and just how absolutely precious your time is in relation to all of these activities that kind of force you for that specified amount of time to be focused on a single specific topic. The next place to look is at your projects. In the Getting Things Done methodology, we define these very specifically as any multi-step desired outcome that you're going to complete about within the next year or so. At the end of the day, they're finish lines that you're keeping track of for major things that are moving in your life. And here, what I often find is that people simply take too much on, where in fact they have some leeway or some say about what they're taking on. First of all, the obvious place is freelancers and those people that own their own companies, entrepreneurs, anyone that's highly self-directed. I often find that in that kind of, endless, infinite opportunity that you get with being highly self-directed, people tend to take on possibly more than they should because they're great ideas. And also within a corporate structure, I often see that people will say yes in a lot of ways when in fact, they're wanting to show willing, but the truth is it's not really reasonable for one person to do. But again, they may be bought into the idea as a good one. So there is a place. There's a place in the Getting Done methodology and kind of in your head and in your way of thinking about this stuff for good ideas that you're no longer committed to. And we call it the someday maybe list. A lot of people that are practicing GTD see it as a place where when they get a good idea and they know they're already overcommitted or don't want to commit to this particular thing yet, they can kind of put that idea into the someday maybe list, and then they're going to review it periodically in the weekly review to potentially promote it into an active project. But equally useful, if not more useful for the someday maybe list, is taking the approach of looking at your projects, looking at your active commitments, and deciding that actually some of those, they're still good ideas. I'm not going to lose them, but I'm going to put them into someday maybe for now so that my current active set of projects, those ones that I truly am committed to, are ones that I know that I'm going to complete successfully and well. Again, if you feel like you don't have the option of ever renegotiating a project into a someday maybe based on where you are in your job, I would encourage you to look really seriously at that and to consider that with an active projects list, simply going to the boss and asking for an understanding of the relative priority, that alone could help you consider that some of these lower priority items actually may need to come off the project list, may need to go into a kind of incubation place with the someday maybe, so that you can really focus on and feel good about the stuff that both you and the boss agree, or if you are the boss, you as the boss agree, are really the most pressing things to be focusing on right now. The final place to look, and in particular, if looking at the calendar and looking at projects alone isn't giving you the relief you really need over time is the ongoing areas of responsibility or areas of focus in your life. In the Getting Things Done methodology, these are slightly higher in terms of being a horizon than the projects. They sort of govern projects. An example of this would be, well, all of us have health as an area of focus, right? Because we're in a physical body. Some of you may have sales responsibilities. Some of you are parents. Your clients may be ongoing areas of focus. Your direct reports and nurturing and supporting their careers could be areas of focus as well. Basically, anything that would show up in a job description as an ongoing thing you need to support, maintain, improve, that's an area of focus, and that's what we're talking about. Now, in a lot of times, you or the company have a good idea, and you launch or initiate that thing, and then suddenly you find yourself saddled with the administration of it over time. I don't know if this has happened to you, but I certainly like to sort of take on new initiatives, and then the next thing I know, I'm maintaining it. So one of the things here is really to give yourself the option to experiment, certainly if you're self-directed, and also to consider that, as an organization, just because, someone initiates something doesn't mean they're the best person or best placed to, basically take that on as an ongoing area over time. So being able to have some flexibility here, being able to add or remove areas of focus over time really requires, once again, renegotiation with yourself, with those around you. And as companies are growing or as you're growing in your own job role, you really often want to ask yourself, am I still the best person for this? Does this still make sense? Is this still really the best use of my time as an ongoing area? And again, if there's not some flexibility there, some options, hey, let's job share this one out, or let's hire someone for that, or whatever, then you may need to look pretty seriously at the role you're in and the flexibility and whether that's going to give you the kind of lifestyle and approach that you want, basically. So areas of focus are much bigger than projects, right? They generate projects in a sense. They're a much bigger rock to move around to create some space in your life, but they're equally an important area to look at when you're feeling overwhelmed. So as I said before, the methodology itself isn't going to say no for you, but it's going to massively, massively help. I've managed quite a few people in my time, including some pretty large teams. And as a manager, I've considered it my job to help people with their relative priorities and to retain them. And most good managers, frankly, do consider those important parts of their job. So coming to them, not with just, I feel overwhelmed, but with an empirical understanding through your GTD system, through your calendar, your projects, and your areas of focus, everything you have going on, so that you can align on what's reasonable with them, is actually a wonderful thing to do. To me, it's the sign of a good employee. I've also been highly self-directed over time, both in my personal life and kind of running my own small businesses. And having that conversation with myself is just as important, because one of my jobs as a self-directed person is to keep focused appropriately. And for me, that means I'm not slipping into getting bored, but I'm also not letting myself get overwhelmed. So if you need encouragement, if you need someone to say it to you, I'm saying it to you now. Have the hard conversations. Have the hard conversations, but not from a feeling level, but from a more empirical level of using your system as a touch point to get really real, first with yourself and then with those around you, about what's reasonable for you and what's not reasonable and what's maybe lower priority. Renegotiate that so you can start to get some space back. You can start to get some of yourself back for yourself, frankly. I hope this was useful to you. If so, again, remember to subscribe. My colleagues are putting out videos, even much better than this, I think, all the time. And, hopefully you will take away, if nothing else, that there is some hope here, that there is an opportunity here. The methodology alone won't do it for you, but it will kind of make it possible in ways that are far more effective for you. There is a way out. It is, unfortunately, through doing the work, but boy, is it worth it. Having clear space, having headspace, to me, that's more valuable than gold in the 21st century. So I would say go for it. Go get yourself some gold.